The big moment. How good is Destiny 2 and is it worth getting? So let me get this out of the way right now. Unlike most reviews that wait until the end of the fucking thing to make you watch or read the whole thing, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm going to tell you right off the bat. This game is an improvement over Destiny 1, but it's not a Game of the Year contender, not by far. For the most part, it feels like an 8 out of 10. I know the YouTube order is like, I can use 8 out of my 10 fingers and go fuck myself with that. That's not bad. Now, as the name of the video implies, Destiny always takes 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. For every great improvement they make, there is something they could have done a little better or something they just outright fucked up. You know, it's like they were on the verge of making something better, and they almost decided, you know what, let's not fully fix this now, so we can fix it later as ongoing support, or more likely DLC that they're going to sell us. Now, my video on Monday compared the game to Destiny 1, but this time, this review is solely judging the game on its own merit. Fuck comparing this to Destiny 1 because I already did that. How does this game compare to the general population of games, and whether or not it's worth your time? Now, I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about so you guys understand this concept of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Undeniably, the game has a story this time around. Just saying that it's better than Destiny 1 is obvious because Destiny 1 had no fucking story. But ultimately, we have a story. The problem is the story is a bit cliche for the most part. Bad guy comes in, beats our asses down, takes our power, and for the rest of the story, it's us regrouping and trying to get our power back to take him down. Ghaul was supposed to be this imposing figure, and we weren't supposed to be able to beat him. He was unstoppable and should have easily won the fight since he got the drop on us at the beginning of the game, and since the Cabal are a warfaring race that used to exterminating entire solar systems. It looked like a formidable opponent for us, and he actually had some pretty accurate lines about how we fear death since we can't revive. He was badass when we first saw this motherfucker. Unfortunately, at the end, in particular the end fight, or the boss fight, if you will, it was kind of underwhelming. He really was a bit easy to beat, and it almost had no mechanics other than changing his superpowers. You know, there wasn't a puzzle, there wasn't a unique way of beating him, it was just straight brute force. Now, as cool as his lines were, the issue of the story writing shows. Anytime Destiny tries to be serious or tries to take itself serious, it falls flat. I mean, we're talking from Zavala to Ikora, even to the Ghost, they come across as cliche. However, when they choose comedies such as Cade, Failsafe, or Asher Mir, then the game is actually fucking entertaining. Their joke writer is on point. Their drama writer is shit. So if you wanted to fire someone over that shit, you fire their drama writer. The joke guy, he knows what the fuck he's doing. And of course, the fact that our Guardian doesn't say shit is also an issue for me. You know, there were times we wanted to say something, but we ended up not doing so. The Ghost does all the talking for us, which really, to me, is a bunch of bullshit. Why the fuck is our Guardian mute? It's still an empty vessel that kills things, with the Ghost as our personality. And I know I already did a video on this, and I'm not going to harp on this too much, but I don't know why this shit continues. Even in Destiny 1, we talked a few lines. They were horrible, but at least we talked. We had a fucking voice box to say something. Overall, though, the campaign was average, but the main thing that the campaign is meant for is really ranking up. Look, the story is not meant to be BioShock. It's not meant to be The Last of Us. It's not going to be award-winning shit. It's meant for us to get to the meat of the game. The grind, all the wonderful and maddening grind of Destiny. Fuck this shit. Now, anyone who played Destiny knows the grind. If you're getting into Destiny 2 for the first time, you're going to experience the content grind in order to rank up. And it's a challenge in this game. But let me focus on the top-notch shit first. The environment itself is absolutely stunning once again. If you guys have the 4K version of this game, or you guys going to be on PC and get to see that shit, oh man, did they go all out with the graphics and the skyboxes on this time. Plus, the maps are much bigger this time around, with far more area to do things, and the biggest improvement overall in this game is exploring. Destiny 1 has some vast spaces, we know that, but oftentimes, there wasn't shit to do. You remember the Moth Yards on Earth? You remember that one? That's the large open space next to the landing zone. What the fuck would you do there? Almost nothing, aside from maybe going there for a patrol, or you had to go through there for some story mission or some shit like that. You're on your way somewhere else. You didn't really stay there. It was just a big fucking map, and then eventually you might do a public event there, but really there was nothing to do there. Here, Bungie has added so much content to the open worlds. The most obvious one is the public event tracker. You know where an event is coming, you know when it's going to get there, and fast travel was added so we can get there faster. Oh, motherfucker, I love the fucking fast travel. I can get to where I'm going without having to ride my Sparrow. Goddamn day, man. We also added high-value targets. They added wars with the enemy factions moving against one another. We have adventures, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later because I have more to say about that. You have the lost sectors for loot. You know, you combine all that with the size of most of these maps, and they really tweaked their stale recipe this time around. There's no question about that. All those cool things that they added every now and then as events in Destiny 1, they said, you know what, we're giving that shit right off the bat in Destiny 2 and adding even more to that shit. There really isn't much to knock about how much they improved the open world. It is massively improved, and right now, probably the best part of Destiny, well, along with the raid as well. But with great expectations comes great sacrifice, because we now have so much to do and need to grind for hours so Bungie could keep us coming back on the hamster wheel. The cost was the quality of life things that really make Destiny 1 decent. A number of items Destiny 1 had are not available here, and it really makes certain activities pointless. Since the grind to rank up as fast as possible requires you to play content as fast as possible, that means strikes are not as viable as they once were. You know, public events are much faster with more opportunities for loot, to rank up and whatnot, and strikes essentially take longer, and there's no guaranteed item like we used to have. Remember the skeleton keys before? You get a skeleton key, you could get whatever the fuck was in the box at the end after you beat the boss. That doesn't exist here. So most people are not playing strikes because they're not as rewarding as they used to be. Certainly not as rewarding as a public event. They improved some details on the strikes, but as long as people are grinding out the ranks right now, it's not the place they're going to do it. To prevent us from ranking up so damn fast, they created this large valley of power creep. In other words, how do I get from level 265 to 300? Getting to 265 is the easy part. You just keep playing and eventually you're going to get there. Getting higher is why you need to play endless hours of the game, and most people just don't have that kind of time. Well, you know, obviously, unless you're a streamer and you connect yourself to a catheter bag to collect all your shit and piss while you drink Monster Energy drinks and eat fucking Pop-Tarts all goddamn day long. Oh, fuck those pieces of shit, man. Anyways, the infusion system was changed, and they made it even more confusing with the addition of the mods. You know, while I won't get into details about that, I will probably be doing a video in the future on that shit. So I don't want to focus too much time on that right now, but basically, it's a way to slow us down in ranking up, and it's not a smart idea. I get why they did it. I just don't agree with their thought process. The Crucible also changed 4v4 to accommodate that MLG bullshit. They also streamlined things into 2 playlists. For now, I'm sure it'll expand, but for now, everything is listed in 2 playlists. I don't like this for a long-term solution, but for the short-term solution, this is actually a smart idea. You know, since people are all over the place right now in Destiny, they're doing as much content as they can. Having way too many playlists would dilute the playing pool in the Crucible matchmaking. You remember Call of Duty? You remember how when you logged in, and they would tell you exactly how many people are playing a certain game mode? I'm not sure if they still do that shit, because obviously I haven't played that shit in so long. But you remember when they would do that? 10,000 people in Team Deathmatch, 8,000 in Domination, 5,000 in Search and Destroy, whatever the fuck, and then 25 people playing like Sabotage. Nobody liked that fucking mode. So if you wanted to find a game there, it took long-ass time to find it, and you were playing with the same fucking people. The more playlists and game types you have, the more people spread out. So condensing that into a smaller playlist actually makes sense. It gets your population funneled into 1 or 2 areas, and matchmaking should be a lot quicker. I like this idea for launch. However, at some point, they will need to space those things out. I'm sure the game modes will be on their way eventually. I'm sure they will separate all that out. But at least for now, it's still early. Getting everyone into the same content seems to be their goal, and I actually think that's a smart idea. Now, as for the Crucible itself, it's still early. I can tell that I'm still playing against people who are not great at the game, and when I do find players that know how to play, they fucking stomp me. But I will say this, some of the changes, in particular removing the ability to have a shotgun and a sniper all the goddamn time, those were actually some smart ideas. Those guns overtook Destiny 1 in the Crucible, so basically if you're at a distance, you got sniped. If you're up close, you got shotguns. Now, what you're seeing more of is team firing. Multiple players grouping up to shoot at enemies. And you can't go all badass, kill all 6 people with an overpowered gun anymore. No, that shit doesn't happen. That's been tempered down a bit. The Crucible itself is something I can't stand, but I will say so far the changes are pretty decent, with the exception of the 4v4 shit, because I can't stand MLG creeping their shit into this fucking game, but so far we've had some improvements. It's still evolving. It's still going to be different down the road, and they're going to be more playlists eventually, but they kept things simple at the start, not to overwhelm and fracture the community too much. The one change that I would like to see is probably lowering the point thresholds to finishing a game. Right now, every single game is going to the time limit. Very few games are actually finishing at the point total. Chances are that's the 4v4 creeping into this, but essentially they're probably going to have to take a look and see what the point totals are, because right now every game that I play in is going to the time limit. Final thing that was also an improvement was the addition of lore and story through the adventures around the map. Back in Destiny 1, we had a main storyline, and then there were some side missions that were not tied to the bullshit they called a story. However, it appeared that there were 20 missions in Destiny, but the reality was it was more like maybe 15 story missions or 12 story missions, and then like 8 side missions, whatever the hell. They weren't distinguished enough, and some of those missions were meant to give us background to the game. I'll give you a great example. On the moon, we had the Shrine of Oryx mission. You never needed to do it. If you did the prime mission before that, you could advance to the next planet, which was Venus. It wasn't a necessity to the game. People, of course, played it because it looked like it was a fucking story mission, and it was their way to introduce Oryx to us, but it was not required. It was not meant to advance the story in any way. Instead of those funky story missions that were not part of the campaign, this time around we got adventures, side missions that give us some background on certain things, such as like the crew of the Exodus Black, or how the European Dark Zone came to be overrun with Fallen, or why Ikora thinks Io is so important to Destiny lore. It's a far better way of getting the story and lore into the game than what they had before. However, the missions these entail are nothing more than a souped-up patrol mission. It's not terrible in any way, but it's certainly not the greatest way to spend 15 minutes hunting down lore and whatnot. I much rather prefer things this way than the way they were in Destiny 1, which is better than any of those fucking Grimoire cards. Oh god, I hated that shit. It was so fucking annoying to read the background of the game, having to go to a goddamn website, see what the fuck the card is, unlock the card in the game, go to, oh man, fuck that shit. At least here we are, we get some extra narrative in the game. We get some extra explanation to the story with these side missions. I just wish there weren't some cheesy exploration missions to follow. You know what I'm talking about? Follow the exact same map in the story. Seriously, every fucking adventure mission follows the exact same path as this main story, only it ends a little bit differently. For example, the main storyline had you go into a rooftop to fight a wizard to start a generator or whatever the fuck it was. In an adventure, right next to the main storyline, you follow that same exact path, do the same exact shit, fight the same exact enemies, except at the end, you end up on the rooftop next to the original one, and instead of fighting a wizard to start a generator, now you fight a knight. It's like Destiny 1, remember when they rolled out the DLC? Every DLC had you run strike missions backwards from the boss hunt out. It feels like that. But overall, adding the lore to the game is probably one of the biggest improvements that they actually had compared to Destiny 1. Now, the final thing that I will address very lightly is the shaders issues, mainly because I have a video that I'm going to be doing next week, and it says the top 10 things Destiny 2 needs to change, or that will be fully addressed in that particular video. I'm probably the wrong person to address this one, because shaders, to me, have always been decorations, Barbie doll dress-ups, if you will. It's not something I need to have or I need to look like. I really don't give a fuck. If I get them, I get them. I don't stress out over them. And I've been saying this since my Call of Duty days of guns camo turning into transactions and whatnot of DLC. I just don't give a fuck. So when the system was changed, it didn't irk me and piss me off like the rest of the community. I really don't care how many shaders I have. I don't, because I get them all the time from ranking up and going to get those bright engrams. But I get the community's complaint. I really do. In Destiny 1, the game was empty and shallow. We know that. The shaders, especially the raid ones, they were like a badge of accomplishment. Oh, I have Chatter White. I have Glowhoo. And that was your way of showing you completed the raid. I remember the first time we beat Crota and we got that Glowhoo shader. We put that shit on, went to the tower, and we're walking around neon green motherfuckers looking like a bunch of jackasses. We were happy as shit because we completed it. I get it. It was an accomplishment. Adding them as microtransactions, though, piss people off, even though you're naturally going to earn them. Using them one time only also pisses people off, and that because there isn't a collection of them or there isn't a kiosk to get the motherfuckers, it really shows that what was an accomplishment in Destiny 1 is now not being taken as seriously in Destiny 2. And there are plenty of websites and Reddit posters that have given ideas on how Bungie can improve these or change these and whatnot. Personally, I don't care enough about shaders to turn this into a big stink, but I do get where people are coming from, and I also get Bungie's logic of turning this into a cosmetic item and then into a microtransaction. I get it, because regardless of whether you have a different shader, regardless of what it looks like, it doesn't impact your ability on the game itself. But that was the biggest complaint in week number 1, was your fucking dress-up items. Now, overall, Destiny 2 had to fight the stigma of being nothing more than an expansion pack. It really did. It really had to show this was a different game, worthy of a sequel, and worthy of the price tag of a new game. With changes to the gun system, changes to the power rankings, removal of our old gear, you know, because they destroyed a fucking tower and Cade was pissed they broke all of his stuff. You know, they changed the storylines that altered the content from Destiny 1. I get it. It's a tough sell to doubters. This game isn't an expansion. At times, it does feel like an expansion. At times, you really see that it is a sequel. It feels like an expansion when you see that the Vex and the Fallen and the Hive are really just glanced over. They're nothing more than background with your war against the Cabal. It was a Cabal-themed story. But then when you're exploring all these planets, doing adventures, your public timer, the new gun system, finding out how to rank up, then you realize, you know what, this really is a sequel. They really did change enough that it does feel like a different game in terms of the quality of life content. The way I see it is this. People who hate on Destiny, for their own reasons, will not like this game. There's no point in convincing people like that. People who want to hate for whatever reason, they're going to continue to hate on this motherfucker. They're going to make videos of how bad Destiny is. Oh, look at this part. Look at that part. They're going to show minor pieces of the game showing, oh, this is so fucking horrible. How could you play this bullshit? Meanwhile, they're showing 1% of the game as opposed to the other 99%. Please, give me a break. People who enjoy this game, though, they aren't going to change their minds about liking this game. No matter what I tell you about what was fucked up in this game, whether it's the Crucible, whether it's the mistakes they made in the quality of life, it's not going to change how people feel. It reinforces what Destiny 1 actually got right in its 3 years. Those people are going to like and continue to play this game. The people that are on the fence about this game, whether you didn't play Destiny 1 and you're curious about it, or whether you did actually play Destiny 1, you rightfully left the game because it failed to meet expectations, I will say this. The game is improved. It's always fun to play with friends. There is no doubt about that. But it's a game you still need to invest time in order to understand why people enjoy it so much. It's a game to play with friends and to choose what activities you want to participate in, because there is quite a variety in this game than there was before. There really is a lot to do, a lot of repeating to do, but there's a lot to do in order to rank up and get all the content that you want in the game. Overall, that's why I say this feels like an 8 out of 10. Some parts feel like a 7, some parts sometimes feel like a 6. And then at other times it feels like a 9. Nothing really feels like a 10, but it's certainly not a flop like the original. It certainly does stand on its own. It is a sequel. It's like Destiny 1.9. It's close enough that you can round up in this motherfucker. But essentially, those of you who are playing it, I'm sure you're probably enjoying it because you played Destiny 1, you wanted to play all the content again. Those who aren't playing it, I'm not going to say you're missing out on anything, because if you don't like Destiny, cool, not your cup of tea, by all means, enjoy something else. But for me, the game is entertaining, it's been entertaining, it has its flaws, and I'm going to be addressing that in a future video, which I said is going to be the 10 things that Destiny 2 needs to change. But for now, this is how I'm going to review the game. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit, and I'll see you guys in the next video.